So IP made a video some time ago about quantum mechanics. Yep, this guy is still at it. He just won't stop.
Make it stop! Oh, make it stop!
The main reason many look for a different interpretation beyond the standard is, quite frankly, the philosophical implications it brings.
So, I am not actually a proponent of Böhmian mechanics, so most of the stuff IP says here, I agree with. Except towards the end. That's where things start to get a little crazy.
The reason many look for a different interpretation beyond the standard is, quite frankly, the philosophical implications it brings.
And what are those implications, IP? It's not about trying to establish an observer-independent reality for quantum systems.
Since it runs counter to the attempt to establish an observer-independent reality.
It's not about trying to establish an observer-independent reality for quantum systems. It's about trying to ascertain the value of certain observables like speed, momentum, and spin. The particles still exist, but the point is that the values of certain observables are undefined prior to measurement.
That has been the central pursuit of natural science since its beginning. The Copenhagen interpretation is a pragmatic and positivist interpretation, but once you include the philosophical implications of it, you lack an observer-independent reality, which many philosophically do not want to accept for whatever reasons they may have.
Nope.
So despite that the most parsimonious interpretation of the data leads us to a standard or orthodox interpretation, many do not want to accept the philosophical implications of this and seek a more convoluted interpretation.
This is the point that people, including me, the first time I came across this, didn't understand. Not every property is an observable. For example, mass and charge are properties of an electron, but they're not observables. In fact, observables are really the properties that are statistically defined. Spin and momentum are statistically defined. So in other words, there is a probability distribution for the value of certain observables. So you have to look at it probabilistically, like you're rolling a die. However, we know the mass of an electron. It's 9.11 times 10 to the minus 31 kilograms. That's the rest mass of an electron. The charge of an electron is minus 1.602 times 10 to the minus 19 coulombs. These things, these values are true prior to measurement, IP.
Which is why we get interpretations like Böhmian mechanics, an attempt to save realism from the observer effect. But it simply posits too much extra physics, which is not verifiable or falsifiable. Proponents of Böhmian mechanics often state that their interpretation makes the same predictions as standard quantum mechanics. Well, yes, that is true, but it is also the problem. It makes the same predictions by positing so much extra in order to explain what quantum mechanics can without the excessive baggage. Böhmian mechanics makes all the same predictions, but has to drastically violate Occam's razor in order to do so.
But Böhmian mechanics is not the only interpretation. There is also the ensemble interpretation, or the Copenhagen interpretation, or the quantum Bayesian interpretation.
David Bohm.
IP, stop. As a German speaker, es ist Böhm ausgesprochen. It's pronounced Böhm, not Bohm. You can continue.
Even implied his theory was only an incomplete possibility and did not have the same predictive power as standard quantum theory. The only purpose of this phase of the work was to show that an alternative to the Copenhagen interpretation is at least logically possible.
What's your point, Vanessa?
But the truth is, no one denies that Böhmian mechanics is at least logically possible. But possibility is not probability, and certainly doesn't mean it will get past Occam's razor. The truth is, just about anything is possible. I could create an interpretation that all the quantum states we have ever observed were divinely planted to trick us. That is possible, but it is not probable.
You mean like the creationists who say that the fossils are there just to test our faith?
In posits excessive events, they are not necessary in order to explain the data.
IP, your God is unnecessary.
So just telling us Böhmian mechanics exists and is possible doesn't show it is the best explanation of the data. And if the only reason it is posited is in order to avoid the philosophical implications of the orthodox or standard interpretation of quantum mechanics,
It's not that I don't want to accept it, it's that it's not fucking true.
then there really are only emotional reasons to hold to it.
For the materialists watching this, I just want to let you know that you are not doomed to such a stupid conclusion. There are other interpretations, and the standard interpretation doesn't say what IP wants it to say.
Not logical or rational reasons.
Just like your God, dude. Don't join his cult, guys. Don't join that stupid-ass cult. You see, guys and gals, it's not that Böhmian mechanics is right. It's that IP is interpreting the Copenhagen interpretation wrong. What the fuck is your objection, IP?
God is a superstition!